London, the 23rd of January, 2026. Following weeks of intensifying courtroom spectacle, explosive allegations, and what has become one of the most emotionally fraught public testimonies in modern royal history, Buckingham Palace has released a statement both rare and resolute. It is not issued in defense, nor an outrage, but as a reaffirmation of principle. The Crown, it states, does not engage in disputes rooted in personal grievance. It acknowledges no role in the matters presently before the High Court and will not be drawn into public commentary on internal family affairs when those matters are amplified or weaponized in public arenas. Delivered late in the afternoon by the palace's chief press secretary and formally authorized by His Majesty King Charles III and Her Royal Highness Princess Anne, the statement represents the first official clarification of the royal family's stance regarding Prince Harry's legal action against Associated Newspapers Limited. Yet it reads as more than a routine press release. It functions as a clear line drawn in the sand, placing duty, dignity, and tradition firmly above personal vendetta. This is not unfamiliar terrain for the royal household. Internal turbulence has surfaced before, but as Prince Harry's courtroom claims grew increasingly personal, accusing Prince William of betrayal and Princess Catherine of deliberately blocking his inheritance and reconciliation, the need for clarity became unavoidable. Not clarity in defense, but clarity in institutional boundaries. During a subsequent briefing at St. James's Palace, Princess Anne, renowned for her candor and unwavering adherence to protocol, offered a measured yet unmistakably pointed response. "The Crown exists to serve the nation, not itself," she stated. "We do not litigate our values, nor do we outsource responsibility to courts or tabloids. Those who choose to depart from that path do so by their own decision, not by royal design." Her tone sharpened further, uncharacteristically direct. To suggest that the Princess of Wales, or any member of this family, interfered with a deceased mother's will, without evidence, without due process, without private consultation, is not merely inaccurate, she said, but disgraceful. This institution will not legitimize delusion by lending it dignity. The message carried the weight of finality. No rebuttal, no debate, simply an assertion: the monarchy will not be manipulated by emotional theater. For generations, the royal family has adhered to a deceptively simple doctrine: never complain, never explain. Not a rule of silence, but of restraint. A belief that leadership is demonstrated through presence, not protest. Prince Harry's recent assertions, however, have pushed that doctrine to its limits. By claiming that Catherine personally prevented him from receiving an alleged Clause 3 inheritance from Princess Diana's sealed will, and by portraying William as morally weak, Harry did more than criticize his family. He attempted to cast the institution itself as complicit in emotional sabotage. It is that framing the palace now categorically rejects. The royal household does not operate on emotional leverage. The statement reads, "We exist to preserve constitutional continuity, public trust, and institutional integrity. While personal pain deserves acknowledgement, it cannot be permitted to dictate the narrative of public service." Sources close to the palace confirm the decision to speak publicly was not made lightly. There were internal discussions about maintaining silence, but it was reportedly Princess Anne who pressed for a reaffirmation of ethical limits. What distinguishes this moment is not the airing of grievances, but the fact that those grievances are now entangled with high court proceedings, interwoven with claims of compensation, inheritance, and reputational damage. "This is no longer a private family crisis," one constitutional advisor remarked. "It is a public challenge to the image of the Crown disguised as a personal reckoning, and it required a firm boundary. That boundary has now been drawn. The palace has made clear that the lawsuit is neither endorsed, supported, nor morally shared by the royal family." Privately, senior courtiers describe Prince Harry's conduct as recklessly endangering institutional trust, particularly through his implication of Princess Catherine, a figure whose public approval now surpasses even that of Queen Elizabeth II during her Jubilee years. Representatives close to the Wales household have declined personal comment, maintaining their long-standing policy of professional silence. However, Sources acknowledge that Prince William was deeply wounded by the courtroom statements, especially the claim that he withheld legal support out of spite. "That's not leadership. That's not brotherhood," Harry reportedly said under oath. From the palace's perspective, however, William's refusal was not an act of betrayal, but an adherence to institutional boundaries. He would never place himself inside an ongoing lawsuit. A former palace legal advisor explained, "That simply isn't how the monarchy functions." And Prince Harry knows this. He also knows that the Princess of Wales has not uttered a single word in her own defense. Not in court, not through the media, not even via discreet briefings. Instead, she has continued to carry out a full public program, including recent appearances at youth cancer units, mental health conferences, and trauma recovery charities. "You don't need to respond to falsehoods to overcome them," a senior Kensington Palace aide observed. "You just continue to show up." That silence, far from weakness, has been widely interpreted by royal commentators as an expression of authority. Catherine's decision to say nothing may, in fact, be her most powerful rebuttal, as the case of Windsor v. Associated Newspapers Limited moved into its second full week. The High Court shifted from a forum of legal examination into a crucible of competing narratives. At its center stood Prince Harry, isolated, embattled, and attempting to transform a deeply personal account of pain and betrayal into a case of national consequence. Yet across witness sessions and rebuttals, a central reality has begun to surface. Grievance is not evidence, and emotion does not outweigh proof. What began as a privacy claim has evolved into a spectacle marked by unverified accusations, inconsistent timelines, and, most destabilizing of all, a determined effort to pull senior members of the royal family into a legal fight they neither recognize nor endorse. Despite the intensity of Harry's testimony, the palace has maintained a calm, deliberate distance, refusing to legitimize what many royal aides privately characterize as an improvised theater of resentment. Compounding matters, Prince Harry's legal team, staffed by leading barristers, collapsed just 2 weeks before trial, citing irreconcilable differences in strategy and a breakdown in client cooperation. In open court, Harry acknowledged that he had turned to Prince William for assistance in securing new counsel, a request that was declined. "I approached my brother in good faith," Harry told the court. "I was met with silence." Palace insiders, however, dispute that framing. They describe the decision not as abandonment, but as a conscious avoidance of conflict of interest. Had the Prince of Wales intervened in any capacity, even to suggest a solicitor, it would have exposed him to accusations of royal interference, explained a former Privy Council legal advisor. William's refusal, they insist, was institutional, rather than personal. That emotional interpretation, however, is now being leveraged by Harry as evidence of betrayal. The courtroom has therefore become not just a venue for litigation, but a stage for personal catharsis, one that legal analysts say is eroding the credibility of the case itself. During a particularly tense cross-examination, Anthony White, KC lead counsel for Associated Newspapers, pressed Harry to produce tangible evidence of criminal wrongdoing. "Where is the proof?" White demanded. "Which journalists committed illegal acts? When, by what methods? And with whose authorization?" Under mounting pressure, Harry's responses grew increasingly vague. He spoke instead of a pervasive culture of intrusion, emotional harm, and institutional neglect. Compelling language, perhaps, but insufficient to meet the legal standard required to prove unlawful conduct or intentional damage. Defense exhibits, including personal emails, public relations, coordination notes, and social invitations, suggested that several journalists, now accused of harassment, had previously been welcomed into Harry's inner circle. One phrase, attributed to a named reporter, echoed through the press gallery. "Harry, you invited me." The point was repeated throughout proceedings. What was once convenient access is now being recast as predation. Amid all of this, Meghan Markle remains notably absent. Early communications entered into evidence indicate that she was among the first to initiate the data-gathering efforts that formed the foundation of the lawsuit. Yet she has neither testified nor appeared in court, nor issued any statement or public show of support. For many observers, that absence speaks volumes. Against this backdrop of escalating tension and televised testimony, Buckingham Palace has activated what internal sources describe as a firewall strategy. Its core principle is straightforward. The monarchy does not litigate emotion. Rather than rush to defend Catherine, challenge Harry directly, or contest allegations point by point, the palace has invoked Article 9 of the Royal Charter on Public Conduct, a rarely used provision allowing the family to formally declare non-association with private legal actions, irrespective of blood ties. Last employed during the Duke of York's civil case in 2022, the protocol permits the immediate era, one in which optics often carry more power than rebuttals. In sharp contrast to Meghan's earlier high-profile interviews and Harry's current courtroom testimony, the Prince and Princess of Wales have avoided all reactive media entirely. They have concentrated on domestic charitable work, declined to approve any briefings or rebuttals, and limited their official platforms strictly to service-related content. The outcome has been unmistakable, a dramatic surge in public favorability. Recent Ipsos polling places Catherine at a record high 78% approval rating. William follows closely at 76%. Up 2 points since the trial began. Harry has dropped to 28%, down 4 points, while Meghan stands at 19%, down 3. It's not about what the whales say, one royal historian observed. It's about what they refuse to say. Silence, when provoked, is power. Multiple palace sources confirm that while no formal statement is planned from William or Catherine, their public engagements and visibility strategy have been reviewed and approved by the sovereign's private council under what insiders are calling an institutional distancing protocol. The objectives are precise: reinforce stability, avoid legal entanglement, and allow the courtroom process to unfold without royal interference. Put simply, the Crown will not enter a quarrel it did not initiate, nor will it intervene to shield someone who voluntarily stepped outside its protections. As one veteran royal correspondent summarized, Harry is attempting to relitigate relationships. William is focused on shaping a nation's future. The contrast, they added, could not be starker. As proceedings continue in Windsor v. Associated Newspapers Limited, one absence looms larger than any testimony. Meghan Markle remains missing from the witness stand, the press lines, and the broader public narrative. Once a central architect of the couple's media and legal campaign, her complete withdrawal has become one of the most closely examined silences in recent royal history. What initially appeared tactical is now being interpreted by analysts as far more consequential, a symbolic disengagement from the narrative she helped construct, and a calculated effort to safeguard what remains of her personal brand. As Harry's credibility weakens under cross-examination, court filings reveal that as early as mid-2021, Meghan initiated private audits of press coverage, engaged a U.S.-based media law consultancy, and urged Harry to compile reputational risk dossiers. These materials later became foundational to their shared legal strategy. Court records show Meghan's name appearing in more than 113 internal emails concerning media allegations, response planning, and litigation pathways. By every available measure, she was an active co-strategist, and yet, as the case intensified, she disappeared from view. Sources linked to the Arkwell Foundation, several currently on temporary leave, confirm that Meghan opted out of any formal involvement in the trial as early as October 2025, citing long-term brand protection and emotional boundary setting. A leaked internal memo was blunt: "We do not recommend direct public involvement in litigation likely to result in reputational regression, moral ambiguity, or narrative contamination." As one commentator put it more plainly, "This case is getting messy, and she doesn't want the dirt on her shoes." Royal analysts remain divided. Some argue Meghan's silence functions as a strategic buffer, allowing Harry's claims to succeed or fail on their own merits. Others see it as a quiet abandonment, leaving him to shoulder alone a fight once framed as a shared mission. "It's one thing to support reform," said British media ethicist Dr. Leanne Moffat. "It's another to step away from your own husband's courtroom battle, especially when you helped design it." there is little doubt the absence has altered public perception. Once portrayed as a unified force for change, Harry and Meghan are increasingly viewed as a fractured partnership, diverging in goals, tone, and tolerance for risk. Polling reflects that shift. A YouGov flash survey conducted the 24th of January found that 62% of Britons believe Meghan's absence signals a lack of confidence in the case. 71% say her refusal to testify weakens their joint credibility. Only 11% expect her to re-enter the public arena before the trial concludes. Inside courtroom 3, Harry's composure has visibly eroded. His delivery has grown sharper, his pauses longer, his presence more strained. Court artists and journalists alike have noted his isolation, arriving through side entrances, avoiding press contact, eyes restless during cross-examination. On the 5th day of proceedings, during a brief recess, a reporter called out, "Where's Meghan today?" Harry offered no reply. Later that afternoon, as questioning turned to projected financial losses, the defense referenced the couple's Netflix content strategy. Harry, barely audible, muttered, "It wasn't her story to finish." That single sentence, seemingly insignificant, ignited instantly online, fueling speculation that a fracture may now be forming even behind the scenes. One Archewell insider, speaking anonymously to The Guardian, described the internal mood bluntly. She handed him the sword, but refused to carry the shield. According to the source, confusion and even quiet hurt now ripple through the organization. Meanwhile, nearly 5,000 miles away in Montecito, Meghan is reportedly in the final stages of preparing a full-scale brand relaunch, slated for spring 2026. Publicists and fashion consultants involved in the project say the repositioning will deliberately exclude royal titles, references, or commentary on British media altogether. "This is Meghan 2.0, said one branding executive. "Wellness, empowerment, children's content. No tabloids, no tiaras." Planned ventures include a streaming partnership focused on emotional literacy for children, a fashion capsule with a major European house described as deliberately apolitical, and a podcast Femoir hybrid titled The Quiet Reset, centered on healing from narratives that were never yours to carry. Notably, absent from all preliminary materials, Prince Harry, intentional or not. Meghan's silence has left Harry visibly isolated, exposed to press framing, public scrutiny, and aggressive cross-examination, without the protective buffer of their once unified front. "They used to present themselves as inseparable," one veteran royal correspondent observed. "Now it appears only one of them is still standing in the fight." The longer Meghan remains disengaged, the more her absence shifts from legal calculation to cultural symbol, the slow dissolution of a shared legacy built on confrontation, now unraveling under selective participation. As Prince Harry's legal battle continues to dominate headlines, a very different form of leadership has quietly asserted itself at the core of the monarchy, not from the throne, nor from the direct heirs, but from the steadfast presence of Princess Anne. Known for her bluntness and unwavering sense of duty, the Princess Royal has emerged as the institutional voice of discipline and clarity amid a period marked by spectacle, confusion, and familial rupture. What began as murmurs behind palace walls has crystallized into what aides are now calling the Anne Doctrine, an internal ethos reinforcing the monarchy's ethical foundation, defining its non-negotiable boundaries, and drawing a firm moral distinction between public service and personal grievance. On the 24th of January, during a private engagement with military families in Portsmouth, Princess Anne was asked informally, off camera, whether the royal family would ever respond directly to Prince Harry's accusations. Her reply was brief but decisive: "We don't respond to fantasy." Though not an official statement, the remark was quickly corroborated by multiple attendees and circulated among journalists covering the Windsor trial. By evening, it had reached front pages across both conservative and centrist outlets. Behind closed doors, senior aides confirmed that Anne has become the guiding moral compass during this volatile chapter. She doesn't speak often, one longtime courtier noted, but when she does, she sets the tone. Unlike formal royal policy, The Anne doctrine is not written into law or protocol. It is lived expected through conduct, rather than codified in text. Palace sources describe it as resting on 5 core principles. Service before sentiment. Royals are not activists. They serve the crown. Personal emotion, however genuine, must never eclipse public duty. Silence is strength. Refusal to engage in media spectacle is not avoidance, but disciplined restraint. Legacy is earned, not claimed. Titles, inheritance, and symbolic standing are conferred through conduct, not blood alone, and can be forfeited. No crown without character. The monarchy holds itself to a higher ethical standard. Deception, manipulation, and performative victimhood have no place within it. You leave by choice, you remain by conduct. Stepping away from royal duty is not exile, but return requires humility, accountability, and honor. Sources say that during a recent Privy Council meeting, Princess Anne delivered a pointed warning about allowing personal narratives to blur institutional clarity. "We are not a family soap opera," she reportedly said. "We are a constitutional pillar. If that distinction is forgotten, it must be corrected or removed." She is also said to have personally reviewed drafts of recent palace press briefings, ensuring they emphasize discipline over defense. It was Anne who insisted the family avoid direct rebuttals to Harry's claims, arguing simply, "Let the facts speak, let his words stand on their own." Truth eventually surfaces, so does delusion. While King Charles maintains his silence, and Prince William continues with his public duties, it is Princess Anne who has quietly assumed the role of setting firm boundaries behind the scenes. Her position on Prince Harry is not driven by emotion, but by institution. According to a senior palace official, her guidance is unequivocal: no outreach, no mediation, no public defense. The royal family, insiders say, had previously offered multiple opportunities for private reconciliation in earlier years. Those efforts were either dismissed outright or transformed into public and media confrontations. As a result, Anne has advised the sovereign to regard Harry not as a family member in distress, but as a private individual pursuing a personal legal grievance against a third party, one entirely disconnected from the monarchy in legal, ethical, or representative terms. If this posture appears uncompromising, public sentiment suggests otherwise. Polling conducted by The Times and the Sovereign Index in the aftermath of Harry's courtroom remarks shows that 67% of Britons believe the monarchy should fully distance itself from both Harry and Meghan during ongoing legal proceedings. 73% agree with Anne's view that royal roles must be earned through conduct rather than inherited by birth. Among respondents aged 35 and older, an overwhelming 82% say Princess Anne best embodies the monarchy's moral integrity. Her approval ratings now rival those of Princess Catherine, a rare achievement, particularly given Anne's deliberately low public profile and her refusal to give interviews. As the Sussex legal drama continues to dominate news cycles, Anne's doctrine serves a broader objective: preserving the continuity of the crown. The message is straightforward. One palace historian explained, "You may step away from the monarchy, you may criticize it, but you do not get to reshape it from the outside." Often described as the quiet workhorse of the royal family, Princess Anne has, in this moment of institutional pressure, become its quiet general, not demonstrative, not reactive, but absolute. As Windsor v. Associated Newspapers limited approaches, closing arguments, and the public gaze shifts from spectacle to substance, one conclusion has become unavoidable. Prince Harry's lawsuit has not fractured the monarchy, it has clarified it. In doing so, the institution he once left appears more unified, more focused, and more confident about its future than at any point in recent memory. This chapter is not simply the legal end of a high-profile defamation case. It stands as a defining referendum: duty versus disruption, tradition versus turmoil, and what it truly means to carry the crown's legacy in a modern era. In an unexpected move on the 26th of January, Harry's legal team filed a motion to amend their original claim, reducing the damages sought from £31.6 million to £18.7 million, and formally abandoning the breach. of confidence allegation. The shift followed a punishing week of cross-examination, in which defense barristers dismantled key timelines. Witnesses characterized Harry's accusations as emotionally charged but legally unsupported. Alleged harassment was reframed as social invitations, public relations correspondence, and voluntarily granted access. Legal analysts now suggest that portions of the case could be dismissed outright before February, or at best result in a symbolic judgment with minimal damages. Though Harry remains the named plaintiff, he is increasingly perceived as a defendant to his own inconsistencies. As one former royal press officer put it, he came seeking justice, but arrived with emotion instead of evidence. When pressed to prove harm, all that remained was resentment. Meghan Markle's absence from the proceedings, now confirmed as permanent, has added another layer of emotional and symbolic weight to Harry's isolation. Despite appearing in dozens of legal documents as a co-initiator of the lawsuit's early stages, she has fully disengaged, reportedly focusing instead on a US-based brand relaunch planned for spring 2026, free of royal association. Projects include a children's empowerment series centered on identity, and a potential second memoir described by insiders as a reclamation of self rather than history. For critics, however, the optics are unforgiving. She lit the fire. One royal biographer remarked, and left Harry inside holding the matches. Public opinion reflects that harsh assessment. A final Ipsos poll released on the 27th of January shows that 74% of respondents believe Meghan should have testified if she genuinely supported the cause. 68% say Harry now appears more isolated than ever. Just 12% believe the lawsuit improved the couple's public image. Meanwhile, Prince William and Princess Catherine continue to ascend, not through statements or spin, but through presence. Since the 20th of January, the Prince and Princess of Wales have carried out a demanding schedule of public service, visiting shelters for displaced women in Newcastle, convening roundtables on police trauma recovery in Cumbria, attending a Holocaust memorial at Westminster Abbey, and launching Catherine's Shaping Us Early Childhood initiative in Yorkshire. At no point during these engagements was Prince Harry mentioned. There was no need. Each appearance reinforced what the public has already come to accept. The future of the monarchy is not reactive. It is restorative. Royal analysts now describe William and Catherine standing as the strongest seen since the era of Queen Elizabeth II. Current favorability figures reflect that reality. Princess Catherine at 79%, Prince William at 77%, King Charles III at 58%, Prince Harry at 26%, and Meghan Markle at 18%. Even more revealing was a question posed in the Sovereign Index's latest survey: who best represents the values of the modern monarchy? The answer, by a decisive margin, Catherine, William, and Princess Anne. Within Clarence House, senior sources confirm that Operation Quiet Tether, the strategy of containing fallout while reaffirming duty, will remain in effect for the foreseeable future. Its parameters are clear: no formal statement on Harry or the trial, no legal intervention from the palace, and no contact unless conducted through official diplomatic channels. As one senior advisor put it, this is not exile, it is consequence. Harry chose to step outside the institution, and with that choice, he stepped beyond its protections. Even King Charles, known privately for his emotional depth, has made no overture. Those close to him say he has come to terms with the reality that reconciliation, if it ever occurs, must do so without public pressure, leverage, or courtroom accusations. At an informal gathering at the Royal Navy College 2 days earlier, Princess Anne was once again asked, off the record, whether she believed the family had failed Harry. Her response was brief, quiet, and immovable. "We didn't fail him. We simply stopped following him." That single sentence soon appeared on the front pages of 3 major UK newspapers and was shared more than 4 million times online. In many ways, it became the closing argument the monarchy never formally delivered, because it didn't need to. As the final weeks of this courtroom drama play out, what remains at stake is not only a ruling on press conduct, but a broader national reflection on character. Harry may yet secure a partial legal victory, but the monarchy, silent, steady, and intact, has already secured something greater: the loyalty of its people, the credibility of its heirs, and moral authority that no court can confer or remove, because legacy is not won through lawsuits. It is built through restraint, service, and an unshakable presence. We wish him peace. The palace position effectively says, but we will not walk this road with him. And so, without press conferences, interviews, or rebuttals, the royal family moves forward, unified, upright, and facing the future.